Hey, what's up? It's Nerf. So, in the background, the gameplays I've got were 3 matches in a row where I got Motherships. Which I'll admit, the Mothership actually isn't as bad as I think as it used to be. It really depends on the map that you're playing on, whether or not people are trying to take out your Mothership, and also how good your accuracy is with the actual streak itself, because the aiming mechanics on it are kind of wonky. You know, sometimes it feels like just not zooming in with the reticle or whatever with the gun turrets actually makes it easier to kill people. Sometimes it seems like zooming in, and then sometimes a mix where like you zoom in on targets and then zoom out, zoom. You know, it's kind of a weird thing to use. But either way, this first match I was teamed up with War Tank, and it was the last match that I played that night. So the next day when I got on, the first match that I played, I got another shit again. And then the third match in here is with Be Thou Wrecked. We teamed up and got called hackers the whole time. Because both of us did extremely well that match. So it's, you know, fun gameplay, a lot of interesting moments. The second match, when I was solo, there was actually this really cool guy on my team, which, you know, it's awesome bumping into actually decent people online, cool people, because you bump into so many assholes and trolls. But this guy was really cool. He noticed that I was going on a longer gun streak, and he was like, "Hey man, I got you a hater, hopefully you get your nuke." And he was really rooting for me to get a nuclear bound. But you know, and once I get to that portion of the gameplay, I'll be talking about something else. But basically what happens, I started to go on a longer streak. I can't remember if it was a relentless or a whatever it was, but I decided to chase this one enemy player instead of just sticking to my guns and going back to where I was, because I had good positioning against the enemy team. I was kind of in their spawn, and I got a couple of hit markers on this guy, and instead of just letting him go off and do his own thing, I tried to chase him. And when you watch it back in theater, it's easy to see your mistakes, and I saw the guy camping in the corner, or hiding pretty much in the corner when I went to chase him when I watched it back, but at the time I didn't see him there. And his reaction, even to me jumping down there next to him, was super slow. So if I had known he was there, I could have just turned and shot him. But either way, I probably could have gotten a nuke, but I wasn't paying attention and got shot because I followed, and I probably shouldn't have. So anyway, all that said, I kind of wanted to start covering topics that are super interesting to me. And you know, all of us have passions in life. All of us have things that we really, really appreciate and enjoy about existence. And one of mine happens to be unexplained phenomena. And by that, obviously, I'm talking about anything from, you know, spiritual-based stuff to things that you see in the sky. You know, stuff like that just really, really fascinates me. And I don't look at it from, I guess, a sheepish perspective. You know, I don't assume that things are something or assume that they aren't something. I don't, you know, jump to conclusions without evidence to support them. You know, even if that evidence happens to be just based on millions or thousands of personal experiences, you know, it gets to a point with even personal experiences where if you have an extremely large number of people, and people that are very reliable and accountable, making the same sort of claim, the statistical probabilities, the mathematical odds that they are mistaken gets extremely low. So anyway, things of that nature just really fascinated me, and I wanted to talk about one of those things today, and that is the moon. You know, the moon is something we obviously all acknowledge. We acknowledge that it's there. A lot of us appreciate its beauty in the night sky, sometimes in the daytime sky. And I know recently we had, you know, a mildly rare astronomical phenomenon, which was known as an eclipse. We had that happen, and and millions of people were interested and excited, and it made news, probably more than it normally would have. But it's just fascinating. People are fascinated by it. However, I'm not sure how many people actually question things regarding the moon, and that's something that I wanted to discuss. I know personally, I researched and looked into a lot of the opinions about the moon being potentially hollow, and stuff of that nature, which unfortunately science doesn't quite support that theory. But either way, I'm going to post a couple of website links down in the description where I'm getting my information from. And I have fact-checked these viewpoints and these quotes that I'm going to be citing and stating. So yeah, this first bit of information comes from actual Wikipedia page about the hollow moon theory. And between 1972 and 1977, seismometers installed on the moon by the Apollo missions recorded moonquakes. The moon was described as ringing like a bell during some of these quakes, specifically the shallow ones. This phrase was brought to popular attention in March of 1970 in an article in Popular Science. When Apollo 12 deliberately crashed the ascent stage of its lunar module onto the moon's surface, it was claimed that the moon rang like a bell for an hour, leading to arguments that it must be hollow like a bell. Lunar seismology experts since then have shown that the lunar body has shallow moonquakes that act differently from the quakes on Earth due to differences in texture, type, and density of the planetary strata, but there is no evidence of any large empty space inside the body. The fact that the moon is less dense than the Earth is advanced to support that it's hollow. The moon's mean density is 3.3 grams per centimeter to the third power, whereas the Earth's is 5.5 grams per centimeter to the third power. One explanation of this discrepancy is that the moon may have been formed by a giant impact which ejected some of the Earth's early upper crust into its orbit. The Earth's upper mantle and crust are less dense than its core. So with this in mind, this is true. One of science's only explanations for the moon even existing is that earlier in the Earth's existence, or in the Earth's life cycle, another planetary body, like a small planet or planetoid, actually collided with our planet with such force, obviously, that it would have knocked so much of our mass into our atmosphere, or into our orbit, that it could have formed the moon. So obviously what would have happened, planet or planetoid type object hits Earth, knocks a large portion of our crust into space. Our orbit, our gravitational pull, held that in place. There was probably a large ring around the Earth, kind of like you would see with Saturn. Over time, millions of years, all of that debris would have settled into one mass, and that mass would have become the moon. But there are problems with this. Quite a few problems. And actually, over on awesomeu.org, here are 4 main obstacles that science has faced in trying to explain why the moon is there. For one, it's too big. The moon is the 5th largest satellite in our solar system. But those other 4 belong to planets that are much larger than the Earth in sheer size, like Jupiter and Saturn. Proportionally speaking, the moon is the biggest natural satellite in the solar system relative to its primary planet. In other words, the Earth's mass, and therefore gravitational pull, shouldn't be strong enough to hold a satellite as massive as the moon is. To put this in perspective, many astrophysicists agree that a planet with a gravitational field as small as Earth's should have a satellite of roughly 48 kilometers in diameter or less. The moon has a whopping 3,474 kilometers in diameter. Much more than what our planet's gravity should be able to hold, and yet there it is. The second issue, the orbit is too perfect. When any celestial body becomes ensnared in another's gravitational pull, its original momentum means it would take a wide elliptical orbit. If we consider the fact that we have seasons on Earth, depending on how close or far away we are to the Sun, we can understand how the Earth has an elliptical orbit around the Sun as well as every other planet. Other planets experience the same with their satellites that orbit elliptically around them, all planets except Earth. The Moon is the only known celestial body that maintains a nearly perfect orbit, circular orbit, around Earth. Strange? Yes, you bet it is. And scientists still haven't come to a consensus of how that happened. The third issue, it's perfectly placed between the Sun and the Earth. The Moon has a 3,474 kilometer in diameter size. The Sun has an astounding 1.392 million kilometers in diameter. There's no reason why the Moon should be at the precise distance from Earth as to perfectly cover the Sun during an eclipse, and yet it is. This is a quote from Isaac Asimov. There is no astronomical reason why the Moon and Earth should fit so well. It is the sheerest of coincidences, and only the Earth among all the planets is blessed in this fashion. The fourth issue, its rotation around Earth is exactly the same as its rotation around itself. You know, on Earth we have night and day cycles because the Earth is spinning. This makes it so that the side of the planet that is facing the Sun continues to change as we continue to orbit around it. The same mechanic happens with the Moon as well as any other planet and satellite. However, the Moon has another extreme coincidence about it. The speed at which it spins is exactly the same as the time it takes for it to circle the Earth. So essentially that's why we see the same side of the Moon, because as it orbits around us, it rotates at the exact same pace. Remarkable as it may be, it's still yet another major coincidence. I mean, think about it. What are the odds of both of those speeds matching exactly? The Earth rotates 360 times per orbit. The Moon does that at a precise 1-in-1 ratio. Uncanny to say the least. Each of these anomalies are either considered impossible by the brightest minds in astrophysics or deemed extreme coincidences. Even in the event of these extreme coincidences taking place, any of them taking place, one has to wonder what the odds are of all four happening at the same time. It's truly remarkable that the celestial body that keeps us company at night has no real reason to be there. It literally goes against a number of laws of physics, begging the question, why is it there? And again, Erwin Shapiro from the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics said, looking at all the anomalies and unanswered questions about the Moon, the best explanation for the Moon is observational error. It doesn't exist. And of course, Shapiro is a highly respected figure in astrophysics. His research includes the use of gravitational lenses to assess the age of the universe. So yeah, all these things considered, the Moon shouldn't technically even be there. And the fact that it is has fascinated people like myself since the dawn of man. So it's also kind of funny, when I first started hearing about and researching the hollow moon theory, it reminded me of a video. There's a video game called The Dig that I played back before I had a PC. I had an old Macintosh back in the day, and it's an old LucasArts game. Basically what happens, an asteroid comes into the Earth's orbit, and these three scientists and astronauts and physicists go up there to check it out. And you end up finding out, after doing some drilling and investigating, the asteroid wasn't an asteroid at all. It was an intelligently designed starship. It's like this crystalline starship, and you end up going through space-time and landing on a planet and having to save their species and whatever. Really interesting game, but it's one of those things where if I had the option, I would love to just go to the Moon or go to Mars. With hell, just give me a garden trowel, give me a freaking shovel. I just want to dig and look around like a kid in a sandbox, or a little boy in a pile of dirt. I just want to investigate and try and find something cool. But anyway, yeah, just interesting stuff, and hopefully you guys enjoyed my rant, and maybe you learned something along the way as well, which would be cool. So I don't know, if you liked the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.